I'm Sarah Miller, 34, working as a financial advisor in Boston. Ironic, right? I spent my entire life being financially responsible while watching my parents favor my younger brother Michael with everything from affection to resources. For years, I quietly paid their mortgage after Dad refinanced their paid-off home to fund another of Michael's failed ventures. Then came the ultimate betrayal. Mom and Dad left everything to him in the will. Everything. So I stopped making those monthly payments without saying a word. When Mom's panicked text arrived a month later about the mortgage being due, I finally found the strength to respond calmly. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more stories about finding the courage to stand up for yourself. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts during the 1990s, I learned early what it meant to be the less favored child in our middle-class family. Our modest two-story colonial house with the white picket fence and well-maintained garden looked perfect from the outside, but inside those walls existed an undeniable truth I couldn't escape. Michael, my brother 3 years my junior, was the golden child. Boys need more support to succeed in this world. My father would often explain whenever I questioned why Michael received new sports equipment while I made do with hand-me-downs, or why his academic achievements warranted expensive celebrations, while mine earned merely obligatory nods. Dad ran a moderately successful construction business that provided comfortably for our family, allowing Mom to remain a homemaker dedicated primarily to Michael's development and activities. Numbers always came naturally to me, and I found solace in their predictability and fairness, unlike family dynamics where emotional math never quite added up. By third grade, I was balancing my own small allowance in a detailed notebook, planning weeks ahead for desired purchases, while Michael received spontaneous gifts for minimal effort. The pattern continued throughout high school where, despite maintaining a 4.0 GPA, serving as class treasurer, and working part-time at a local accounting firm, my achievements remained somehow secondary to Michael's average grades in baseball. Trophies. College represented my first taste of true independence when I earned a substantial scholarship to Boston University's finance program, an accomplishment met with my parents' surprising comment that, "It's good you got that scholarship, because we need to save for Michael's education." Sure enough, 3 years later, when Michael enrolled in a private university's business management program, my parents covered every expense without hesitation, from tuition to luxury apartment housing, while I worked multiple campus jobs to cover my remaining expenses not covered by scholarship. Those college years also marked the beginning of my emotional independence as I built meaningful friendships with people who valued my intelligence and dependability, rather than viewing these traits as simply useful utilities. My finance degree led to an entry-level position at a respected Boston investment firm, where I quickly gained recognition for my analytical skills and client rapport. Meanwhile, the family celebrated Michael's business degree as if he'd discovered cold fusion, throwing an extravagant graduation party that cost more than they'd contributed to my entire education. Despite these clear disparities, I maintained close family ties, calling weekly and visiting monthly, telling myself that family relationships transcended scorekeeping. The first time my parents asked for financial help came shortly after my promotion to junior advisor, just a small loan to help with property taxes they'd fallen behind on. I agreed without hesitation, wanting to prove my worth and usefulness. That small request became the first trickle in what would eventually become a flood of financial dependence disguised as temporary assistance. While establishing myself professionally in Boston's competitive financial sector, I managed to purchase a modest but charming condo in Cambridge through disciplined saving and investment, an achievement that received less acknowledgement from my parents than Michael's announcement that he was starting a sporting goods store with friends. When that business predictably failed within 18 months due to mismanagement and excessive spending on unnecessary inventory, my parents liquefied their retirement savings to cover his debts. Watching this pattern unfold created a constant internal conflict. My professional training screamed at the financial irresponsibility, while my emotional programming insisted I remain the supportive daughter. This contradiction became the backdrop against which I built my adult life. always successful on the outside while carrying the weight of family dysfunction just beneath the surface. My 30th birthday marked a significant professional milestone with my promotion to senior financial advisor at Wellington Barnes, one of Boston's most prestigious wealth management firms. My client portfolio had grown impressively, and I'd developed a reputation for particularly astute investment strategies during market volatility. This career advancement brought greater financial security, but coincided with my father's first serious health scare, elevated blood pressure, and concerning cardiac symptoms that required multiple specialist appointments. During this period, Michael launched his second entrepreneurial attempt, an upscale restaurant concept requiring substantial startup capital. Despite my gentle suggestions about the risky timing given Dad's health concerns, my parents enthusiastically backed Michael's venture, believing his promise that this business would provide for their retirement. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, while reviewing a client's portfolio, I received a concerning call from Mom asking specific questions about second mortgages and interest rates. My professional alarm bells immediately rang at full volume, and after some persistent questioning, I discovered they had refinanced their completely paid-off family home to provide startup capital for Michael's restaurant. Further investigation revealed they'd signed for a substantial mortgage with disadvantageous terms that would require payments well into their 80s. When I offered to review the paperwork and possibly find better terms through my professional connections, Dad dismissed my concerns with his typical, "We know what we're doing, Sarah," ending the conversation before it could truly begin. Within 6 months of this financial decision, Dad suffered a major heart attack while inspecting the renovation progress at Michael's restaurant site. The subsequent hospitalization, procedures, and medications created a mountain of medical expenses that their insurance only partially covered. Once again, the phone rang with Mom's anxious voice, this time asking if I could temporarily help with some of the medical bills they couldn't manage. Without hesitation, I stepped in, paying nearly $30,000 of their health care costs over the next year, rationalizing that my substantial income made this possible without significant personal sacrifice. During Dad's recovery period, they expressed genuine gratitude for my financial assistance, yet conversations invariably circled back to concerns about how Michael's restaurant was struggling due to circumstances beyond his control, and their fears about his financial stability. This period also marked the beginning of my relationship with Thomas, a thoughtful architectural engineer I met through a client referral. Unlike previous boyfriends who never quite understood my family dynamics, Thomas asked insightful questions about why I continued supporting my family financially when they consistently prioritized Michael's ventures. "They're still my parents," became my standard response, though his questions planted seeds of awareness I wasn't yet ready to cultivate. As Dad's health stabilized into a new normal of medications and restricted activities, Michael's restaurant predictably began failing, first with excuses about the location, then complaints about unreliable staff, and finally blaming changing neighborhood demographics. Throughout this slow-motion business collapse, I observed Michael maintaining his luxury apartment, driving a new sports car, and taking weekend trips to coastal resorts, all while crying poverty to our parents. Family gatherings during this period followed a predictable script. Michael would receive abundant sympathy for his business challenges, while my recent promotion to managing director, overseeing a billion-dollar client portfolio, warranted merely polite acknowledgement before. Conversation shifted back to Michael's needs. My growing resentment remained largely internal, occasionally surfacing in private conversations with Thomas, but never directly addressed with my family. Then came the watershed moment that shifted our financial dynamic permanently. Discovering, through casual conversation, that my parents had fallen 3 months behind on their mortgage payments due to helping Michael cover restaurant supplier debts. Without announcing my intentions, I quietly set up automatic payments from my account to cover their monthly mortgage obligation, telling myself it was temporary protection for my parents' retirement security rather than another bailout for Michael's. Financial irresponsibility. That temporary arrangement continued for nearly 2 years, becoming an unspoken expectation rather than appreciated assistance, all while Michael continued his pattern of reckless spending, and my parents continued, enabling his financial dependence. Dad's health took a dramatic turn during the winter of my 33rd year when routine blood work revealed advanced pancreatic cancer that had already metastasized beyond surgical intervention. The prognosis of 6 months hit our family like a physical blow, transforming our dynamics as we collectively faced Dad's mortality. During one of my regular hospital visits, Dad initiated what seemed like a meaningful conversation about family legacy and financial responsibility. "You've always been the responsible one, Sarah," he acknowledged, while gazing out the hospital window at the Boston skyline. "I want you to know I see how much you've done for this family." Those words felt like water in an emotional desert. The first real recognition of my contributions after decades of feeling secondary. As Dad's condition deteriorated, family discussions inevitably turned toward practical matters of inheritance and property distribution. Having managed their financial support for years, I naturally assumed some equitable distribution would follow. Perhaps the family home would go to Michael since he had expressed sentimental attachment to it, while liquid assets and investments might balance the equation for me. Throughout Dad's final months, I increased my financial support, covering not just the mortgage but also upgrading their home with accessibility features, paying for in-home nursing assistance not covered by insurance, and handling countless incidental expenses to ensure Dad's comfort. These contributions totaled well over $60,000 within just 4 months, drawn from my personal savings rather than investment accounts I didn't want to liquidate during market volatility. Dad's final weeks brought the family together. In ways both painful and precious, Michael even temporarily moved back to the family home, though his helping consisted primarily of emotional support rather than practical or financial assistance. One particularly meaningful evening, Dad asked for private time with me, gripping my hand with surprising strength given his condition. "You're going to be just fine, Sarah," he whispered, his voice raspy from medication. "I've always known you would succeed at anything you put your mind to." Though not explicitly addressing inheritance matters, this conversation left me with a sense of forthcoming acknowledgement for years of support and responsibility. The funeral arrangements fell naturally to me, from selecting the mahogany casket Dad would have appreciated to coordinating the memorial service that drew unexpected hundreds from the community. I covered these expenses without comment or complaint, viewing it as my final act of daughterly devotion. The attorney's office where we gathered for the will reading featured the kind of somber wood paneling and leather chairs that signal both wealth and tradition. Michael arrived 20 minutes late, offering vague excuses about traffic while scrolling through his phone until the proceedings began. The initial standard legal terminology washed over me until the attorney reached the distribution of assets, at which point his voice seemed to fade beneath the sudden rushing of blood in my ears. To my son, Michael Miller, I leave the family residence at 47 Oakwood Drive. All associated furnishings and personal effects, my entire interest in Miller Construction Company, all financial accounts, investments, insurance policies, and remaining assets of any kind. The attorney continued reading, but my mind struggled to process this complete exclusion until hearing, "To my daughter, Sarah Miller, I leave my collection of first edition history books, my grandfather's pocket watch, and my blessing for continued success in her already established career." The attorney's uncomfortable expression revealed he recognized the profound inequality of this distribution, but professional ethics prevented comment beyond asking if I had questions about the specific personal items bequeathed to me. Michael's barely concealed smirk contrasted sharply with Mom's steadfast avoidance of eye contact, her gaze fixed on her clasped hands throughout the reading. My exterior composure during this revelation belied the internal collapse of fundamental assumptions about family, fairness, and reciprocity that had governed my life choices. The drive home passed in a blur, tears finally breaking through once safely inside my condo, where Thomas waited with dinner prepared. His immediate supportive anger provided external expression for emotions I couldn't yet fully access. They justified it by saying you don't need the money because you're so successful, my cousin Jen revealed during a phone call the next day, having heard the explanation from other family members. They told everyone that Michael deserves the inheritance because his business struggles weren't his fault, and he needs the security that you already have. This explanation crystallized decades of family dynamics into perfect clarity. My Competence and success had become justification for exploitation rather than reasons for recognition or reciprocity. The weeks following the will reading blurred together in a fog of grief complicated by betrayal, my professional mask remaining firmly in place during client meetings, while private moments dissolved into tears or stunned silence. Despite the inheritance shock, I maintained the automatic mortgage payments, telling myself this final obligation honored Dad's memory rather than enabling further financial irresponsibility. Michael wasted no time establishing himself in the family home, moving his possessions into the master bedroom while Mom transitioned to the guest room without apparent objection. This arrangement struck me as oddly symbolic of the family power dynamics that had persisted throughout my life. The mortgage payments I continued making now funded a home where Michael lived rent-free, a bitter irony not lost on me during sleepless nights reviewing my financial commitments. 3 weeks after the funeral, Mom called with a detailed list of urgent home repairs. The water heater needed replacement, several windows showed signs of rot, and the kitchen appliances were embarrassingly outdated. The estimated $12,000 for these improvements came with the unspoken expectation that I would provide the funds, an assumption made clear by her surprised pause when I asked about Michael's contribution to these expenses. "He's still getting the restaurant affairs settled," she explained, though my industry connections had already informed me that Michael had declared business bankruptcy with significant debts remaining unpaid. My growing suspicion that Michael contributed nothing financially to the household was confirmed when he appeared at a family dinner driving a brand new luxury SUV, proudly detailing its premium features and customizations, while Mom beamed with vicarious pleasure. The disconnect between his conspicuous consumption and the home repair emergencies Mom couldn't afford created a cognitive dissonance I could no longer ignore. Thomas gently suggested therapy might help process both grief and family dynamics, leading to weekly sessions with Dr. Marquez, a compassionate therapist specializing in family systems and grief work. "You're mourning multiple losses simultaneously," she observed during our third session. "Your father's death, the relationship you hoped existed, and the fundamental assumptions about fairness that governed your worldview. These insights provided theoretical framework, but little emotional relief as monthly mortgage withdrawals continued alongside Mom's escalating financial requests for home improvements that primarily benefited Michael's comfort. My work performance inevitably suffered as emotional exhaustion took its toll, leading to concerned conversations with my firm's senior partners about recent investment strategy oversights. Thomas suggested a 2-week Mediterranean vacation to gain perspective, a proposal I initially rejected as escapism until recognizing the wisdom in physical distance from the situation. Barcelona's architecture, Santorini's breathtaking vistas, and Rome's ancient history provided temporary respite, but more importantly, the distance allowed clarity to emerge without daily emotional triggers. One evening, sipping wine on our hotel balcony overlooking the Amalfi Coast, I began calculating exactly how much financial support I'd provided my parents over the years. The mortgage payments alone totaled $42,000 since I'd begun covering them, not including medical expenses, home repairs, or countless smaller contributions that had become so routine I barely registered them anymore. This concrete accounting transformed vague resentment into clear-eyed recognition of systematic financial exploitation justified through family obligation. Upon returning to Boston, I created a detailed spreadsheet documenting every financial contribution I'd made over the past 5 years, a staggering total that could have purchased a vacation home or funded a significant portion of an early retirement. Armed with this concrete evidence, I sought counsel from Victoria, my longtime mentor and the first female partner at my firm. "Family financial entanglements rarely end well," she advised over lunch. "Professional boundaries exist for good reason. They protect both parties from the emotional complications that inevitably arise when money and familial expectations intersect." Her wisdom, earned through decades of advising wealthy families through generational transitions, highlighted the necessity of establishing clear boundaries regardless of potential emotional fallout. That evening, after thorough consideration and discussion with Thomas, I logged into my banking portal and canceled the automatic mortgage payment scheduled for the following week. This simple action, completed in seconds, represented a profound reclamation of agency after years of compliance with unbalanced family expectations. The immediate sense of anxiety following this decision surprised me, as if I'd violated some fundamental law of nature rather than simply stopped voluntary financial support. Thomas held me through that night's panic attack, providing reassurance that ethical behavior shouldn't produce such guilt, evidence that my normal meter had been miscalibrated by years of familial manipulation. In preparation for the inevitable confrontation, I drafted potential responses addressing various scenarios from tearful guilt trips to angry accusations, determined to maintain compassionate firmness regardless of emotional tactics deployed against me. 32 days of silence followed my cancellation of the mortgage payment, a period of eerie calm that allowed me to strengthen my resolve through continued therapy and supportive conversations with Thomas and carefully selected friends. The confrontation began precisely as I had anticipated, with Mom's text message arriving minutes after the mortgage payment would have typically been processed. "Mortgage due! Your payment didn't go through. Please fix ASAP." The exclamation points and urgent tone contrasted sharply with the casual expectation that I would simply fix their financial situation, as I had done countless times before. My hands remained surprisingly steady as I typed the response I'd carefully crafted and revised over weeks. "I've made the decision to discontinue mortgage payments on a home that legally belongs to Michael, who lives there rent-free while driving a new luxury vehicle. I've supported the family financially for years, without acknowledgement or reciprocity, and after being completely excluded from inheritance, I'm establishing necessary boundaries. I love you, but I cannot continue enabling financial irresponsibility." The 3 dots indicating Mom's typing appeared and disappeared multiple times over the next 20 minutes before her reply finally arrived. "How could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you, we could lose our home." This response focused entirely on their potential consequences, rather than acknowledging my perspective, confirmed the pattern Dr. Marquez had helped me identify. My role had been defined solely as family provider without corresponding recognition as family member deserving equitable treatment. Mom's message unleashed a barrage of increasingly frantic texts over the next hours, progressing from guilt-inducing reminders of childhood sacrifices to thinly veiled threats about family estrangement, culminating in, "Your father would be so disappointed in you," the emotional nuclear option designed to ensure maximum damage. Michael's predictable involvement began with an angry phone call I allowed to go to voicemail, followed by a 5-minute message alternating between shouting, accusations of selfishness, and wheedling reminders of family obligation. "You've always been jealous of me," he claimed during one particularly revealing segment, inadvertently acknowledging the preferential treatment that had shaped our family dynamics. Rather than responding to these emotional outbursts directly, I composed a detailed email addressed to both Mom and Michael, attaching the comprehensive spreadsheet documenting my financial contributions over the years. Over the past 5 years, I've contributed $127,340 toward family expenses, including mortgage payments, medical bills, home repairs, and various emergencies. This support continued even after being completely excluded from inheritance. While I value family connection, I cannot maintain one-sided financial responsibility for a home legally owned by Michael, who has demonstrated no financial contribution to its maintenance. I remain open to rebuilding our relationship on more equitable terms. The mortgage company's formal warning letter arrived at the family home a week later, according to their standard collection process, prompting Mom's unexpected appearance. At my office, her tear-stained face and disheveled appearance drawing concerned glances from my colleagues as reception escorted her to a private conference room. "You can't just abandon us," she began without preamble, hands clutching her worn purse like a lifeline. "The bank says they'll start foreclosure proceedings if we miss another payment." The rehearsed response I'd prepared abandoned me in that moment, replaced by a simple question that emerged from newly discovered strength. Why is this my responsibility and not Michael's? Her momentary silence contained more truth than any previous family conversation. The practiced narratives temporarily disrupted by this fundamental challenge to established roles. Our conversation lasted nearly 2 hours, moving from accusations to reluctant acknowledgement that Michael had never contributed financially to household expenses, despite living there and benefiting from the inheritance. "He's going through a difficult time," remained her primary justification, though, when pressed, she couldn't identify any period when Michael hadn't been experiencing some version of difficult times, requiring family rescue. My gentle but firm boundary statement, "I love you, but cannot continue financial support under these circumstances," was repeated so many times it became almost meditative, a centering mantra against emotional manipulation tactics. Michael's escalation took a more aggressive turn the following day with threats to contest those personal items Dad left you unless I resumed mortgage payments, a legally baseless threat clearly designed to intimidate rather than represent actual legal recourse. Family, friends, and relatives began reaching out with concerned messages, having apparently heard a version of events portraying me as callously abandoning my widowed mother, evidence that Michael and Mom had activated the extended family network to apply additional pressure. This external pressure campaign backfired spectacularly when I responded to my father's sister, Aunt Carol, with a simplified version of my financial contribution spreadsheet, adding only, "I've been supporting them financially for years while being completely excluded from inheritance. I'm simply asking that Michael take responsibility for the home he now legally owns." Aunt Carol's shocked response, "Sarah, we had no idea. They told everyone you refused to help them after the funeral," revealed the narrative distortion that had been occurring, prompting her to share the accurate information with other family members who had been similarly misled. The resulting shift in extended family opinion created the first cracks in the unified front Mom and Michael had maintained, with several relatives contacting them directly to express disapproval of their behavior toward me. The family mythology began unraveling completely during a carefully orchestrated lunch meeting with Mom at Neutral Territory, a quiet restaurant halfway between our homes where the public setting would discourage emotional outbursts. "We always expected you would take care of us," Mom admitted, after exhausting her repertoire of guilt tactics against my gentle but immovable boundary. "You're so good with money, and Michael struggles with those things." This simple statement encapsulated decades of family dynamics. My competence had become justification for exploitation rather than reason for respect or reciprocity. When asked directly why they believed Michael deserved complete inheritance while expecting my continued financial support, Mom's response revealed the unconscious family agreement that had shaped our lives. "Michael needs the security more than you do. You've always been able to take care of yourself." The circular logic, excluding me from inheritance because of my success while expecting that same success to provide for them, stood exposed in all its dysfunction, prompting Mom's first tears of genuine remorse rather than manipulation. Meanwhile, Michael's financial irresponsibility became increasingly evident to extended family as news spread that the mortgage payment was merely the most recent in a long history of my financial support. Uncle Robert, Dad's older brother and a retired accountant, called Michael directly after learning the full situation, demanding answers about his nephew's failure to maintain basic financial responsibilities while benefiting exclusively from the inheritance. This expanding awareness created accountability Michael had successfully avoided his entire life, removing the protective buffer of family silence that had enabled his pattern of dependency. 2 months after my boundary-setting decision, the bank moved forward with preliminary foreclosure notifications, forcing Mom and Michael to confront financial reality without my intervention. Through family channels, I learned they had listed the family home for sale, a practical necessity that nonetheless represented a significant emotional milestone in our family's reckoning with unsustainable patterns. During this period of family restructuring, I received unexpected contact from Dad's former business attorney, Martin Goldstein, who requested a private meeting regarding sensitive information about my father's estate. Over coffee in his downtown office, Martin revealed that Dad had made significant changes to his will during his final months while heavily medicated for pain management. The earlier version of the will, drafted 2 years before his diagnosis, included a much more equitable distribution, Martin explained, providing documentation showing the original intention to split all assets equally between Michael and me. This revelation prompted my consultation with an estate attorney regarding potential grounds for contesting the will based on possible undue influence during Dad's vulnerable final months. Despite the attorney's assessment that I had legitimate grounds for legal challenge, I ultimately decided against pursuing that path, recognizing that financial equity couldn't heal the deeper wounds of lifetime emotional inequality. Fighting the will keeps us trapped in the same dysfunctional dynamic, I explained to Thomas during our discussion of the decision. Moving forward requires breaking the pattern entirely, not continuing to seek validation from systems designed to withhold it. The family home sold surprisingly quickly, providing enough funds to pay off the remaining mortgage and outstanding debts while leaving Mom with modest proceeds to secure appropriate housing. She reluctantly moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment, a significant downsizing that represented the tangible consequences of decades of financial mismanagement and enabling behavior. Michael, facing housing responsibility for perhaps the first time in his adult life, announced his engagement to Vanessa, the daughter of a wealthy local business owner, timing that raised eyebrows throughout the extended family given his sudden need for financial stability. During a rare phone conversation with Mom that managed to avoid recriminations, I learned more about the patterns that had shaped our family dynamics. "Your father always worried more about Michael," she explained, momentary honesty breaking through habitual defenses. "He said you were so capable from such a young age, while Michael needed more support to find his way." This explicit acknowledgement of the different standards applied throughout our childhoods provided validation I hadn't realized I still sought, confirmation that the inequality hadn't been merely my perception. With Thomas's unwavering support, I established new, limited contact boundaries with my family, monthly phone calls with Mom, holiday cards, and occasional family gatherings with clear time parameters, but no resumption of financial entanglement under any circumstances. These boundaries initially felt uncomfortable, triggering guilt and anxiety that Dr. Marquez helped me recognize as programmed responses to breaking dysfunctional family rules rather than genuine emotional guidance. The Thanksgiving holiday provided the first test of my new boundaries when I declined Mom's expectation that I would host the family gathering as I had in previous years. Instead, Thomas and I accepted his parents' invitation to join their celebration in Connecticut, a decision that prompted another brief but intense wave of guilt-inducing messages from Mom and Michael. Maintaining our plans despite this pressure represented significant growth in my ability to prioritize healthy relationships over dysfunctional obligations, resulting in our most enjoyable holiday season in years surrounded by Thomas's refreshingly functional family dynamics. The unexpected peace found in maintaining these boundaries reinforced my commitment to the new relationship parameters, proving that family connection could exist without exploitation if all parties respected appropriate limits. 1 year after establishing clear boundaries, the anniversary of Dad's passing arrived with surprising emotional clarity rather than the devastating grief I had anticipated. My promotion to partner at Wellington Barnes had materialized 6 months earlier, bringing both professional recognition and financial advancement that allowed Thomas and I to purchase our dream home in a quiet suburb, balancing proximity to both the city and natural beauty. Our spring wedding had been intimate and joyful, attended by chosen family more than biological connections, though Mom had participated with appropriate boundaries and even genuine warmth toward Thomas. The most remarkable transformation occurred in Mom's gradual journey toward accepting our new relationship parameters, initially resisting through various emotional tactics, but eventually demonstrating respect for the boundaries I maintained consistently despite discomfort. "I'm learning how to have a different kind of relationship with you," she admitted during our monthly phone call, a simple statement representing monumental personal growth for someone who had operated within rigid family patterns for 7 decades. Michael's engagement to wealthy Vanessa dissolved abruptly after his future in-laws discovered his financial history and ongoing irresponsibility, prompting his unexpected appearance at my office one Tuesday afternoon, desperation evident in his disheveled appearance. "I just need a short-term loan until I get things figured out," he explained, the familiar pattern attempting reassertion despite our changed circumstances. My calm refusal, delivered without anger but absolute certainty, offered instead a referral to financial counseling services and connection to legitimate employment opportunities if he sincerely wished to change his circumstances. Most surprisingly, Mom supported my decision when Michael attempted to enlist her assistance in changing my mind. "Sarah's right, Michael. We need to learn how to manage without expecting her to rescue us," she stated during a three-way call. He initiated, hoping to manipulate mother-daughter connection against me. This unprecedented maternal support for appropriate boundaries indicated genuine evolution in our family system, suggesting possibilities for healthier relationships previously unimagined. Mom's tentative steps toward financial independence included securing part-time work at a local florist shop, providing both social connection and modest income that allowed her to occasionally treat herself without seeking external support. The pride in her voice when discussing handling her own apartment maintenance or successfully negotiating with service providers revealed an emerging sense of competence previously undeveloped while living within Dad's traditional provider role and later depending on my financial support. My own healing journey led to establishing a volunteer financial literacy program at a community center serving predominantly low-income women, many escaping situations of financial dependency or abuse. Teaching fundamental money management skills and helping women establish independent financial identities became deeply rewarding work, connecting my professional expertise with personal experience of breaking unhealthy financial patterns. Aunt Carol's passing 6 months into this volunteer work brought another unexpected development when her will designated me as primary beneficiary of her modest estate, explaining in accompanying documentation, "To my niece Sarah, whose integrity and strength of character in difficult circumstances exemplify the values I hold most dear. This inheritance, unlike my parents' estate, came without emotional complications or manipulation, representing genuine appreciation rather than obligation." Thomas and I decided to use a portion of this inheritance to establish a scholarship fund supporting young women pursuing financial education, transforming what could have become another source of family resentment into a legacy of positive impact. Perhaps the most profound healing moment arrived unexpectedly during a routine Sunday phone call when Mom offered her first genuine apology without qualification or expectation. "I've been thinking about how unfairly we treated you for so many years," she began, voice steady with hard-earned insight. "We took advantage of your responsibility and generosity while giving everything to Michael. I'm truly sorry, Sarah." These simple words, delivered without manipulation or hidden agenda, provided closure I hadn't realized was still needed, allowing forgiveness to emerge naturally without sacrificing the boundaries that protected my well-being. The grief process for both Dad's passing and the family relationships I had imagined eventually transformed into acceptance of what was, rather than continued yearning for what should have been. The freedom found in releasing those expectations created space for authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than exploitation disguised as family obligation. Forgiveness, I discovered, didn't require resuming unhealthy patterns, but rather releasing the expectation that people would become something other than who they consistently demonstrated themselves to be. The deepest lesson emerged from recognizing my own intrinsic value separate from utility to others. Worthiness not dependent on providing financial support or solving others' problems. Building a life founded on self-respect and healthy boundaries created prosperity beyond merely financial success, establishing emotional wealth that no inheritance could provide or diminishment take away. The journey from enabler to empowered required crossing difficult terrain of guilt, doubt, and family pressure, but led to panoramic views impossible to appreciate while trapped in dysfunctional valleys. I wonder if any of you have experienced similar family dynamics or had to establish difficult boundaries with loved ones. Please share your stories in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength through challenging family situations. Remember, sometimes the healthiest form of love requires the courage to say no when others want to hear only yes. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength in your own journey toward healthy relationships and self-worth.